Welcome to this deep dive, and today we're looking into the art of letting go. We're
Ooh.
calling this one Blue Smoke, the art of letting go,
I like that.
because we're really going to try to explore how to release things,
Okay.
whether it's relationships or past hurts or even old versions of ourselves,
Right.
things that kind of cling to us like smoke,
Yeah.
but ultimately have to dissipate to make way for new beginnings.
Yeah.
But before we even get into the how-to, I'm just curious of
Yeah.
why is letting go so hard, even when we know we should?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it might seem a little counterintuitive, but the source material we have points to fear as like the main culprit.
Okay.
It's not necessarily the fear of the unknown itself,
Okay.
but the fear of the potential loss
Oh,
associated with the unknown.
so it's less about the void itself and more about what we think we're losing
Exactly.
by stepping into that void.
Yeah.
But isn't there also this element of like clinging to the past,
Mm-hmm.
even when it doesn't serve us anymore? I remember this one article we were looking at talked about how romanticizing past relationships can really keep us stuck.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And that romanticization comes from a resistance to change.
Okay.
Our brains just love patterns and familiarity.
Right.
So even if a past relationship was unhealthy, the familiarity of it can feel safer
Right.
than the uncertainty of moving on.
It's like we'd rather hold on to a burning rope than risk falling into what could be,
Right.
you know,
Right.
a pool of cool water.
A nice soft landing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great
And
analogy.
sometimes that burning rope is an old version of ourselves.
Yes.
We cling to past mistakes and insecurities and identities that just don't fit who we are now.
Right.
So how do we start to shift this perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Because from what we've seen, clinging to the past, whether it's a person or a version of ourselves, just seems like a major roadblock
Yeah.
to being able to let go.
One of the things that was really impactful in the research was the idea that letting go isn't a loss,
Okay.
but an act of creation. It's making space for something new and better to come in.
Okay.
Kind of like if you're clearing out clutter in a room,
Right.
you're making space for new furniture or decor or whatever.
So it's less about subtraction and more about creating the right conditions for something new to actually grow.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about understanding that holding on even to things that brought us joy
Right.
or comfort can actually prevent us from experiencing greater joy and fulfillment.
This makes me think of the sunk cost fallacy,
Yes.
where we stay in a bad situation just because we've invested so much
Exactly.
time or energy into it,
Yeah.
even when it's not beneficial anymore.
Yeah.
Could that apply to relationships too?
Absolutely. And it speaks to the importance of acceptance.
Okay.
One source really emphasized that accepting a situation for what it is without judgment or resistance
Right.
is really essential for moving forward.
So instead of fighting against reality, we need to embrace it as the starting point
Yeah,
for being able to let go.
precisely. It's about recognizing that sometimes the kindest thing we can do for ourselves is release our grip
Yeah.
on what's no longer serving us.
Makes sense. But accepting reality, especially when it's painful,
Right.
it's hard.
Yeah.
There's a natural human tendency to want to resist discomfort.
Sure.
Is there anything in the research that talked about how to make this process easier?
Well, one of the sources touched on the concept of forgiveness as a really powerful tool.
Oh, interesting. Forgiveness.
Yes.
But is that just about forgiving other people who have wronged us?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there more to it?
It's both.
Okay.
It's about forgiving others for the hurt they may have caused,
Right.
but it's also about forgiving ourselves.
Forgiving ourselves. What does that even look like?
Think of it this way. We often carry around guilt and regret and shame from our past mistakes.
Yeah.
And that internal baggage weighs us down and prevents us from moving forward.
Okay.
So forgiving ourselves is like releasing that baggage.
Right.
It's acknowledging that we did the best we could with the knowledge and resources. Right.
Yeah, at the time.
So it's about recognizing that we're all works in progress,
Yes.
constantly evolving and learning as we go.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And when we forgive ourselves, we create space for growth and self-compassion.
Yeah,
It's like letting go of a heavy weight.
I love that image
Yeah.
of releasing the weight.
Mm-hmm.
It goes right back to our blue smoke theme.
You got it.
It's about allowing those negative emotions, the guilt, the regret, the anger,
Yeah.
to just dissipate like smoke
Yep.
and free up space for lighter, more positive energy to come in.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about fear. We've talked about the tendency to romanticize the past,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of acceptance and the power of forgiveness.
Right.
Are there any other roadblocks to letting go that we need to address?
Actually, yes. The research pointed to another concept that can be both a challenge and a solution when it comes to letting go,
Okay.
and that's boundaries.
Boundaries. Interesting. I usually think about boundaries with relationships,
Yeah.
but I'm sensing a broader application here.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So when we talk about boundaries in the context of letting go,
Okay.
we're talking about creating space,
Okay.
physical, emotional, or digital,
Okay.
that allows us to detach from what's no longer serving us.
So that could look like physically distancing ourselves from certain people
Yes.
or places.
Yeah.
Or it could involve setting emotional boundaries, like
Right.
choosing not to engage in conversations or situations that just drain our energy.
Exactly.
We see this in our digital lives, too,
Absolutely.
like unfollowing certain accounts or muting notifications or even just taking a break from social media.
Yeah. All forms of digital boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we have a right to protect our mental and emotional well-being, even if it means making some tough choices about who or what we allow into our lives.
For sure.
I'm starting to see how this ties together. Acceptance is about acknowledging reality. Forgiveness is about releasing the past. And boundaries are about protecting our present and future selves. They
Yeah.
seem like really interconnected pieces of the puzzle.
You're exactly right. They work together to create a foundation for healthy detachment and growth.
That's great.
Yeah.
So insightful. But I know our listeners probably eager to hear about some practical strategies.
Right.
So where do we go from here? How do we actually start letting go of the things that are holding us back?
That's a great question, and one that we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive on letting go. So far, we've really been focusing on the challenges of letting go,
Right.
like fear and clinging to the past and that difficulty of acceptance. We also touched on forgiveness and boundaries
Yeah.
as like key elements of the process.
Yeah.
But now I want to get into the practical stuff, like
Okay.
what can our listener actually do to
Yeah.
start letting go of the things that aren't serving them anymore?
Well, the research offered some really interesting insights there.
Okay.
One of the sources really emphasized the power of ritual when it comes to letting go.
Ritual. That sounds kind of interesting. What do you mean?
So it could be something as simple as like writing down everything you want to let go of on a piece of paper
Okay.
and then burning it safely, of course.
Okay.
The act of physically releasing those thoughts and emotions can be really powerful.
I see how that would be symbolic, like you're giving those feelings a form and then watching them disappear,
Yeah.
literally go up in smoke.
Yeah.
Are there other types of rituals people use?
Oh, definitely. Another common practice is creating like a letting go box
Good.
where you fill it with objects that represent the things that you want to release.
Okay.
So it could be a photo from a past relationship, a letter you never sent, or even just a written list of things you're holding on to.
So the box is like a container,
Yeah.
a way to acknowledge them and then physically set them aside.
Exactly. The act of placing those items in the box can create a sense of closure and separation.
I like that. Those are great ideas. But I imagine some people might find those rituals a little too ceremonial.
Right.
Are there other ways to approach letting go?
Absolutely. Another powerful practice and one that came up repeatedly in the research was journaling.
Ah, journaling. I've always loved to journal, but how does that help with letting go?
Well, writing down your thoughts and emotions lets you process them
Right.
in a safe, contained space.
Okay.
It's like having a conversation with yourself on paper,
Right.
where you can explore those feelings without judgment or censorship.
So you're getting those thoughts and emotions out of your head and onto the page,
Yeah,
where you can look at them a little more objectively.
exactly. And once they're out there, you can start to examine them. You can ask yourself, are these thoughts serving me?
Right.
Are these feelings based in reality? And that process of inquiry can be really helpful in identifying and releasing the ones that aren't helpful anymore.
It's like you're creating space between yourself and those thoughts and emotions.
Right.
So you can choose how you want to respond to them.
Exactly. Journaling can also be a great way to track your progress. You know, as you revisit those entries over time, you might notice shifts in your thinking and feeling,
Right.
which can be incredibly validating and motivating.
So we have rituals and journaling for that active release. But what about in those everyday moments
Yeah.
where those feelings of attachment or resentment kind of creep back in?
Right.
What are some strategies for dealing with that?
That's where mindfulness comes in.
Mindfulness? That's a word we hear everywhere.
Yeah.
How does it apply to letting go?
Mindfulness is about being present in the moment. It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings without judgment, just observing them as they come and go.
Okay, so instead of getting swept away by those thoughts and emotions,
Right.
You're learning to just watch them from a distance,
Yeah,
almost like watching clouds drift by.
exactly. And the more we practice this, the less power those thoughts and emotions have over us. We
Corteo.
begin to see that they're just temporary.
Yeah,
They come and go like waves in the ocean.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
If we're always dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we're not fully present.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where those feelings of attachment and resentment can really take root.
Absolutely. And mindfulness can help us break free from those cyclical thought patterns
Okay.
by grounding us in the here and now.
I gotta confess, I've tried mindfulness before,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it feels a little too fluffy for me.
Yeah.
I'm more of a get things done kind of person.
Okay.
Are there any more action-oriented approaches to letting go?
That's a great point. And not all approaches work for everyone.
Right.
And one source actually emphasized a concept that might resonate with your get things done personality.
Okay.
And that's reframing letting go as a decision.
A decision. Like we can choose to let go even if we don't really feel like it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have agency in this process. We can choose to detach
Okay.
from the things that are no longer serving us, even if it feels difficult in the beginning.
So it's less about waiting for some magical moment where we feel emotionally ready
Right.
and more about just making a conscious choice to move forward.
Precisely.
Yep.
And that shift in mindset can be incredibly empowering. It reminds us that we're not victims of our circumstances,
Okay.
but active participants in shaping our own reality.
I love that. It takes the pressure off, too. We don't have to wait for some big epiphany or emotional breakthrough.
Yeah.
We can just choose to let go and then take action to support that decision.
You got it.
Mhm.
And speaking of action, another source highlighted the importance of creating physical distance.
Okay, this is starting to sound more familiar, like setting
Mm.
boundaries.
Mm-mm.
But you're saying there's more to it than that.
Yeah. Sometimes letting go requires physically removing ourselves from certain people or environments.
So this could mean ending a relationship or moving to a new city
Yes.
or even just rearranging our living space.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our physical environment can really affect our emotional well-being.
Right?
And a change of scenery can be just what we need to create space for letting go.
Like hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
But what about those times when physical distance isn't possible or desirable?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe it's a work colleague we need to detach from or a family member we can't avoid.
Right.
Are there other ways to create distance in those cases?
That's a great question. And one of the sources addressed that specifically. They talked about emotional and energetic distance.
Emotional and energetic distance. What does that mean?
Emotional distance is about detaching from other people's emotions.
Okay.
So that could mean limiting contact, setting boundaries in conversations,
Right.
or simply choosing not to engage in emotional dramas that don't involve us.
So it's about recognizing that we're not responsible for other people's emotion.
Right.
And we have the right to protect our own space.
Exactly. And energetic distance is similar. It's about recognizing that we can be affected by the energy of other people, places, and even objects.
Oh, I've definitely felt that before. Like
Uh-huh.
walking into a room and immediately feeling drained by the energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So energetic distance might involve cleansing our personal space,
Okay.
getting rid of clutter, smudging with sage, or just visualizing a protective bubble around ourselves.
I'm noticing a theme here.
Okay.
It seems like a lot of these strategies for letting go are about focusing on ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts, our feelings, our environment, our energy. Am I right?
You're incredibly perceptive. That's one of the most profound takeaways from the research.
Okay.
Letting go is an inside-out process.
So it's about recognizing that we have more control over our inner world
Yes.
than we often realize.
Mm-hmm.
And by changing our inner state, we can actually affect our external reality.
You've summed it up perfectly. It's about understanding that true letting go starts with letting go of the stories we tell ourselves,
Right.
the beliefs we hold on to, and the emotional baggage we've been carrying for far too long.
This has been so eye-opening. We've
Yeah.
covered rituals, journaling, mindfulness,
Right.
the power of choice, and all those different forms of distance
Mm-hmm.
to help with letting go. But
Yeah.
there's one big piece we haven't talked about yet.
Okay.
Letting go of the past self.
Right.
From the research, it seems like this is the hardest type of letting go.
Yeah.
Why is that, Get?
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore in the last part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about this idea of letting go. We've covered a lot.
Yeah.
We talked about the challenges, and
Right.
we've explored all these techniques like rituals and journaling and mindfulness.
Right.
But before we wrap up, I really want to discuss this idea of letting go of the past self.
Yeah, that's often the hardest part
It is?
because it means facing our own growth
Yeah.
and the discomfort that comes with it.
One of the sources even described it as grieving a part of ourselves.
Yeah,
It's not a physical loss,
right?
but it can feel like a loss of identity.
That's a great way to put it. We put so much into who we think we are
Right.
that when we change those old stories we tell ourselves about ourselves,
Yeah.
it feels threatening.
It's like we're holding on to an outdated script,
Mm-hmm.
even though the play has moved on to a different act.
Yes.
So how do we begin to let go of that past self,
Mm-hmm.
the one that doesn't fit anymore?
Well, the research suggests that it starts by understanding that growth and change
No.
are just inevitable parts of life.
Right.
It's like we wouldn't expect to wear the same clothes
Yeah.
that we wore as children.
Right.
We can't hold on to the same beliefs or habits or identities as we grow up.
Easier said than done, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We have all these memories and experiences,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even traumas that have shaped us.
Yeah,
How do we acknowledge those things without letting them define us?
that's a great question. And that's where self-compassion comes in.
Oh,
Instead of judging ourselves for past mistakes,
right.
we can offer ourselves kindness and understanding.
Like we would a friend.
Exactly.
So recognizing that we were doing the best we could
Yeah.
at the time,
With the knowledge and resources we had then?
it's like giving ourselves permission to be human,
Mm.
to make mistakes.
To be imperfect.
And when we let go of that self-judgment, then we can start to accept and love ourselves.
Yeah.
And from that place, we can let go of those old stories.
Exactly.
There was a quote in one of the sources that said, letting go of the past self isn't about erasing it,
Yeah.
but about reframing it as a stepping stone to who you are now.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
It really shows how our past experiences,
Right.
even the hard ones,
Yeah.
have made us who we are,
Right.
but they don't control our future.
It's like recognizing the foundation of a building,
Mm-hmm.
but not letting it limit what we build on top.
Exactly. We can appreciate our past
Right.
without letting it define us.
Yeah.
We can recognize the lessons we've learned
Mm.
and then use that to make choices now and in the future.
So it's not about pretending the past didn't happen.
Right.
It's about choosing how we weave it into our story.
Precisely. And when we let go of those old stories,
Yeah.
we create space for new ones.
Right.
Ones that fit who we're becoming.
Right.
Stories that help us live better lives.
This has been such a journey.
Yeah, it has.
We've explored the struggles of letting go and discovered all these techniques
Right.
and even gone deep into this idea of letting go of our past selves.
Mm.
As we wrap up, any final thoughts on what letting go means?
To me, letting go is freedom.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
about letting go of the things that are weighing us down
Right.
so we can be free.
I think the biggest takeaway is that letting go isn't a one-time thing.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
It's about learning and growing and having self-compassion
Absolutely.
so we can handle the changes life throws at us.
You said it perfectly. It's a practice
Yeah.
of letting go of what's not working,
Mhm.
making space for growth,
Right.
and just embracing the journey.
That's beautiful. So we've reached the end of our deep dive into blue smoke, the art of letting go.
I like it.
We hope this has given you some insights and tools to help you on your own journey.
Yeah.
Remember, as you let go of what no longer serves you,
Mm-hmm.
you open yourself up to a world of possibilities.
Keep exploring, keep
Right.
growing, and keep letting go.
Until next time, fellow deep divers.